What's going on, everyone? I'm glad you're here. I wanted to record a short video about mental health, specifically anxiety and depression. It's been something on my heart a lot recently. It's always my heart, really. In my work as a clinical therapist and as an executive coach, this mental health is a huge issue, and it's been even more big, I guess that's the right phrase, the last 20 months during COVID. If you look at the statistics of depression, anxiety, it's through the roof. But something I've been wrestling with in the last several months is just coming to grips with my own depression. It's not a depression it's kind of here one day and gone. And it's not this like overwhelming major depressive episode, but it's been kind of this like steady, just kind of heavy feeling. And though I've struggled with mental health issues for most of my life, I do a pretty good job of managing them, but I think this has been a heavy season, and there's lots of reasons. I won't get into all of them. So as I've thought about my own season here, and as I've worked with a lot of people, I was thinking about several things that I think are helpful in terms of just navigating depression, navigating anxiety. And I've said a lot of this in other places, but I just kind of come back to these three things a lot. And make it just really simple. And this is not a magic cure. Those aren't like magic pills. If you do this, everything's going to be right. And I don't necessarily believe in that. There's perfect steps that you follow that solve a problem, right? Mental health takes a very circuitous route. Is that the word? It's not linear from A to B or whatever. It's all over the place. But there's three things that I do typically in my work with people, and something that I try in my own life, and something I've been doing the last several months. And I just want to just name them real quickly for you. Number one, I think it's just important to acknowledge, hey, I'm depressed or I'm anxious. And just acknowledge it, first of all, maybe to yourself. Maybe that just means internally, mentally, you make a note of that, and you just say to yourself, like, I'm anxious or I'm feeling depressed. And then maybe it takes another route where instead of just keeping it to yourself and acknowledging it, you acknowledge it to someone else. I mean, there's so much power in saying to someone else, like, I'm depressed or I'm anxious or I'm feeling this way. Sometimes people acknowledge it by writing it down on a piece of paper. And I think what's really powerful about acknowledging it is just, one, admitting that this is what I'm struggling with, coming to grips with it. And it also has a beautiful way of just externalizing. When we acknowledge something and get something out of our head and share it in community with other people, I think it takes a lot of its power away, and then often we can look at it in a new way. Especially if we write about it, we can look at it objectively. It externalizes it away from us onto something else. And so number one, I think the most critical piece that we can ever do with mental health is just acknowledge that it exists and that we have it and that we're struggling with it. Number two is don't stop at just acknowledging it, but do the work of trying to identify, like, what are the deeper roots, what's actually going on. I think what happens a lot in mental health is that we just focus on the symptoms, and you can end up just trying to manage symptoms your whole life without getting to the root cause, the root issue. And it's when we get to the root issue that actually healing is available to us, that we can heal those deeper things. Something I've learned years ago from my mentor, Terry Hargrave, and I share this all the time when I speak, is that anxiety and depression really aren't like feelings. Anxiety and depression are behaviors. They're coping behaviors of deeper stuff that is going on deep inside of us. So what can happen is if we acknowledge that we're anxious and depressed, we can just focus on just managing those things our entire life and never stop and go, what's going on at a deeper level? For my own journey, it always comes back to an issue of feeling not good enough or feeling inadequate, that when those feelings get tapped, how I cope in life is to become anxious or to become depressed. And so that's work that we all have to do, is to figure out what are the deeper roots. Don't stop at just the symptoms. Yeah, it's okay to say I'm feeling depressed and anxious, but really those are the behaviors where we become anxious, we become depressed, we literally do anxiety, we do depression because something else is going on. And you can understand that and get to the roots of it by working with someone, whether it's a therapist or a pastor, talking to a friend, doing some reading. Sometimes it involves professional help. Sometimes it's just insight that we gain and by doing our own work. And so acknowledge, identify, and the last thing is just to reframe. And sometimes I reframe in the beginning. Sometimes I reframe at the end. It doesn't really matter. There's no order to this. But reframing is simply looking at my depression and anxiety and saying, where is there an opportunity for growth here? The reason I'm depressed, the reason I'm anxious is something is going on inside of me. Again, for me, anxiety and depression has always been, these are the internal cues, the internal lights that are going off in my life that say, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. And we pay attention to it, we understand and learn things about ourselves that we can dive into and we can begin to work on or begin to fix. Instead of it looking at anxiety and depression as an enemy that's trying to crush us, we can maybe come alongside of it and see it as a friend that's giving us information about ourselves or giving us insight that will help us grow. And that might sound crazy to hear right now, depending on where you are in your own life. And sometimes anxiety and depression it's out there to crush us for for varying times in our life. But I've found over the years that when I acknowledge what's going on inside of me, when I begin to identify the roots and I reframe it as an opportunity of growth, I start to see it in a light that is not as scary, but more one that's helpful, maybe even a sense of that it is benign in some ways. And I can come alongside of it and come alongside of the anxiety and depression. I can work with it to better move my life, to better grow in my life, to better transform my life. So start by just acknowledging it to yourself or to someone else. Do the work of identifying what's going on at a deeper level, and then always keep it front and center, this opportunity to reframe it as an opportunity for growth. And again, it's not a magic formula. There aren't linear steps, but I think if you do those three things, it's super helpful. And I can speak from personal experience. It's been super helpful for me in my own life, especially the last few months, as mental health is something I've had to help a lot of people navigate in my practice, as statistics have just been through the roof, and it's something I've had to navigate in my own personal life, having to manage some of these things and get to the root of some of the things going on with me. So anyways, hope that's helpful. Hope you all have a good day, and I'll talk to you later.